When you fight corruption, it fights back. Corruption fights back. It normally fights in stages. First, they will try to compromise you, give you the money if you want. If you fail, if you refuse, if you are able to resist, then you'll be a target of destruction. It happened to me all. If you are not lucky, you will lose your life.
And what is the truth? The truth being that you and I need one another. You and I must grow together, must grow in love, in peace, in unity. You and I must accept peace. You and I must accept love. Today we are going to be talking about how things have gone bad in our world, how things have gone south, and how things currently are. But not from the perspective you probably might be expecting us to be talking about, and not the angle you would be expecting us to like kick and then look at things today. Today in our world we find a whole lot of things happening around us and beyond our grasp in many ways, but even the things that are ordinarily not beyond our grasp, we find ourselves grappling with the idea of to talk or not, to be silent or not, to move on as though nothing is happening, or to say something. And most of the times we don't get to say anything. Most of the times we become so scared, we become so stifled, like we ask ourselves, what is the point? What is the reason? Why should I be the one trying to talk? Should I even be saying anything in the first place? Shouldn't it be the duty of the next man? Shouldn't it be the duty of the next woman to get to say one thing, to get to say another thing? Why should I be the one wanting to be the harbinger of either good news or bad news? Why should I be in a space where I would ordinarily want to stress myself beyond human recognition, beyond the boundaries upon which the laws in the land have set for us, beyond how things are, beyond the status quo of things? Should I get to say anything or should I not? That is the dilemma. It's just like in Hamlet, to be or not to be. That is the question, and that is where we found ourselves today, and that is how we are navigating this world. And many a times we get to fail in our ability to get to project our opinion out there in the grand scheme of things, to see to it that we add our little voices from our own castle into the grand choir that is the world, and the symphony of music and the canvas that is being painted, as well as the tapestry being constructed in our world today. We keep quiet and things go bad, because, like it is said, injustice tolerated in a particular place is a threat to justice everywhere. And what would such a statement even mean in the first place? Such a statement it looks very simple, and sometimes it looks unrelated to the generality of existence down here. But then if we look at it squarely and if we look at it closely, we get to come to understand the perspective from which the author of this actually was coming from. It goes to say that if there's injustice in the Middle East, as obvious as it is currently in the Middle East, and then you, a person from America, seem less concerned about such crisis, sooner or later the crisis down the Middle East will escalate to the extent whereby our idea of cosmopolitanism will be threatened, because the world has become so global, the world has become so international, that it will be very, very difficult to live in isolation, to live without the contact of the next man. An example being communication being stifled in China, and the rise in the use of VPN to show how eager people want to connect and want to do business and want to interact with people. Another instance would be North Korea, of course, and you also get to see what's happening down there. And another instance would be Brazil recent censorship of Twitter. And a whole lot of conversations around free speech, and you see how it gets to go. Just like a girl growing up in a remote village somewhere in Indonesia, somewhere in Asia, somewhere in Africa, somewhere in the Caribbean, somewhere in America, and then such a girl is not being catered for to the best of what the 21st century has come to offer the world, or not even that, to the best of the requirements ordinarily to emancipate the gender she gets to belong to. You see that from not being properly educated to making poor choices when it comes to marital affairs and when it comes to her own choices in life, she gets to navigate this world without coming to fully actualize the potentialities that is left within her, that will be boxed down there wherever that will be. And so it leads to probably she giving birth to kids that would maybe not be the best of themselves, also still stemming from the fact that she probably settled for less. The list gets to go on. The list can be gory, the list can be small. The constant bombardments in the Middle East definitely is going to bring about the rise in more terrorists, because you kill one terrorist, what about the son? You kill the father, what about the children? Because rationality most of the times will be suspended when it comes to making judgments as to why you get to kill someone's father, why you get to dispossess people from their land, and the list gets to continue. And so we live in such times whereby we tolerate a whole lot of things. We close our eyes because of the profits we get to see around. But then in smaller groups, in small communities, what do we get to see? From the individual person, people get to tell themselves that, I am your friend, but then when it matters the most, when there are problems ordinarily to be shared with the next person, people become so afraid of speaking up. People become so afraid of speaking out for reasons not so far, for reasons we ordinarily get to know. Because over time, the human society has come to see people, that's our human race, have come to see people that have ordinarily mocked and laughed at people who want to share things with them, have come to laugh and mock at friends who ordinarily bring their challenges to them. And most of the times they don't get solutions to their problems, and so they begin to ask themselves, what is the purpose of sharing? What is the point of wanting to speak up? What is the point of wanting to speak out? Because I don't see myself making any headways, I don't see myself making any progress, I don't see myself being helped nor being enlightened by my friends, by those I get to talk to. And so what's the point of wanting to say anything? I don't see any progress in my life as it concerns how I get to move, how I am, and what I get to do, because I just end up being mocked at, being laughed at, being ridiculed, and being told that my problems are a bit too little to be complaining about, or I'm not the only person getting to suffer in the world. So there are a whole lot of reasons why people don't want to talk to people again. And if you found yourself in such situation where somebody has tried to approach you and then want to say a couple of things to you, but then you didn't see reasons as to why you should ordinarily get to talk to such a person, I bet you also have contributed to the betrayal and to the despair we are currently facing in our world. And yesterday at a bar with some friends, with some colleagues, we got talking about some bits and pieces of morality and ethics, and we're talking about how our world in recent times have thrown away the guards that ordinarily has to do with the responsibility that comes with our sexual desires and our sexual urge, and how men and women in times past, at least so we want to believe, tried to suppress and guard themselves as it concerns their sexual choices and their sexual desires, as opposed to our level of promiscuity down here in our modern time and the free guard that ordinarily have come to be preached down to us here, and how we get to do things and how we get to function here as a people. And such conversation also stemmed from conversations surrounding abortion, as to whether abortion is right or not. And then we tried suspending religious opinions, right? But then tried to go by way of logical reasoning and epistemological ways of coming to factor this out. And one thing that was underlined by all of us sitting down there was the very fact that the great majority of pregnancies being terminated in modern time doesn't really stem from the particular argument people get to give about why abortion ordinarily should be legal or not. People get to talk about, what about the girl that was raped? What about the child that had incest, and conversations like that? Conversations like that are understandable, they appeal to emotions and all that, but then the crux of the matter remains that the great chunk of pregnancies being terminated or those being carried have been as a result of irresponsibility on our part and not taking proper precautions and what have you. But these kind of talks are like very, very unconventional, and people think we've gone past that stage and we should ordinarily not be trying to have conversations like this. But it also goes to tell us how, to a great extent, our sense of responsibility has dropped, or is dropping, and is dropping drastically. And the philosophers and the guys in the ethical world are not sleeping also. They like, the propaganda continues from both sides, from the left to the right and from the top to the bottom, and around the whole ways of getting to have such conversations, and we see where such go. But then back to where we started from, the conversations and the things we get to do. What happens to them? Why is there so much censorship as to how humans ordinarily should try to express themselves? As Trevor Noah will get to say, we are not even sure as to how we want to go about solving the problems in our times if we are not even ready to speak these problems out and bring them to the fore of our life. If we are not ready to bring the conversations out and to the open, how we are expecting a change to take place if we are not ready to tell the next person, you've hurt me so badly. This is the way I feel about this. This is the way I get to see things. How do we expect to grow, and how do we expect to make sense of our life? Because whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, the fact still remains that we are hurting. And between what is said and what is not said, and what is intended to be said, and what comes to be understood from what we eventually come to say and what we don't get to say, a whole lot is lost. A whole lot is lost in between, and people just recline and go their way and go their part and fall back to their shell, as though that is the way ordinarily we ought to live down here. And until we begin to look at ways of bettering our social skills as to get to free ourselves from the ignorance that have come to capture our world and left us hanging, I don't see us making any progress anytime soon. Because as much as we want to grow, as much as we want to make progress, as much as we want to live a happy life and all that, it goes to say that we must be ready and willing to confront the demons in our life. The way out is through. We cannot want and desire a better life without wanting to share. And so the next time somebody approaches you and gets to tell you, I think I want to tell you something, there's something bothering me and I want us to have a conversation about this, and there's a particular situation I'm going through in my life, there's a particular level of hardship I am experiencing at the moment, and I want us to have a conversation, and please, can you avail me the opportunity to listen to me or to guide me? I pray when such an opportunity comes your way, you will not let such a person down, thereby starting a chain or contributing to the chain that would continually lead to many despairs around our world and many ways of looking at life that ordinarily shouldn't be held. That's the views. That's many such views as come to be held by a whole lot of persons. And I don't know. I just pray when that time comes, you don't run away from the responsibility that ordinarily should be a thing you should be very proud of wanting to do. I pray when such opportunities come, you don't shrink and you don't run and you don't go to hide and you don't go to a different location and a different place. I pray you come to speak up, you come to be with that person, being there, listening, contributing meaningfully. And in case you come to a situation where you cannot be of help to somebody, at least try not to make the person's life worse. Try not to make the person's life a misery. Because out there, within our hearts, within our souls, within the enclaves of our very existence and our being, a whole lot of things get to go on there. A whole lot of demons get to tell us lots of stuff. Be the Cartesian demons or the demons of the Middle Ages or the religious demons. Something gets to always talk to us and tell us, you know what? You cannot come out of this alive. You cannot come out of this safe. And so you get to see people in buses and you see them in airports and you see them in offices. You see them in shopping malls and you see them in churches and in parks and in classes and in parks around town, and you think, it's going all well for them. Everything is all fine. Oh, I am the only person probably going through what I'm going through. But nah, it is a difficult world out there. People are going through hell. And many persons get to despair because life as we've come to have it, at least for the last 300 years, if not more, has not been easy. And there's nothing that points to the fact that it's going to be easy in our time. Our times are times that have come to see the level of hypocrisy we as a people ordinarily can get to champion. At times I've come to see that many persons have ended up alone. Many persons have died alone in times and in situations where ordinarily they shouldn't have gone down that particular route. And what happens? Nothing. And so when you listen to poets gone by and the whole idea of
go placidly amidst the noise at the hiss, and remember more peace than the being silence. As far as possible without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons, their vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievement as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let not this blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for higher ideals, and everywhere light is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love. For in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of bears, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Not just strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Be on a wholesome discipline. Be gentle with yourself. You're a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have the right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive Him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, draughty and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be her.
And so many persons get to go placidly amidst the haste, and they get to keep their life in silence, and they get to do things just within themselves, because you know what? There's a whole lot of things down here. And if we should take a serious look at the poem, we get to see a whole chunk of advice laden here and there from different perspectives. We get to come to understand that, we ordinarily need to take things slow. We ordinarily need to take things a bit slower, even if needs be, because we are not the only persons around here. We are no different from the trees and the plants. We are all equally supposed to be here. We are here at the moment for reasons not so much far from our grasp, though the complexities that come to form what we now consider the meaning in life also gets to leave us, because the world is constantly evolving, things are constantly changing, our laws are changing, our realities are changing, leaving a whole lot of persons behind. Some persons get lucky, they dabble into things that get to shoot them to stardom. Some don't, and then they find themselves where they are, in this capitalistic world, in this world where everybody is just looking at what they can gain and what they cannot gain. We find ourselves troubled, and troubled greatly. We find ourselves challenged on many fronts as to what to do, as to what not to do, as to how to go and how not to go. And I can tell you, as an African, as a Nigerian, the challenges of life are many, particularly as it pertains living in a country like Nigeria in the 21st century, a country where there should ordinarily be every reason right, not even there should, a country where there's every reason and every justification to be very successful, but the reverse have come to be the case. As such, you find a whole lot of persons getting to despair. We talk about the problem in Nigeria as though we are taking in air and exhaling out air. We sleep with the tox on our mouths and we wake up with the tox from also our mouth. We sleep with this type of conversations and we wake up and we continue from where we stop. And sometimes we wake up and we find out that new challenges have been presented to us. And sometimes I ask myself, for how long are we going to go before we get to our breaking point, before we get beyond yielding point? For how long can we go before we tell ourselves that we cannot go this way again? That's something that fascinates me, because as a Nigerian, you get to see that a whole lot of persons are so patient. There's this resilience in the face of adversity that gets to be associated with a Nigerian and an African. I begin to ask myself, is it because of the numerous challenges people around that particular region have come to experience, or just the mere fact that it is innate in them, if we're to go by anthropological ways of looking at things, are people being one of the oldest, if not the oldest, of our civilization, of our human race? But I don't have the answers, because there's every reason why the people should be angry, but yet they are not. There's every reason why Nigerians should be angry, but everybody just seems to be not fine, but quiet. And this silence is not a thing we don't know. It's a thing also we get to know. The trauma that comes with trying to speak out in Nigeria, and the labeling one gets to get as to fighting a war. Ordinarily, people have come to believe that such a war would never be won because the force you are fighting against is indeed actually great. Just like the then EFCC chairman, Nuhu Ribadu, will get to tell us.
When you fight corruption, it fights back. Corruption fights back. It normally fights in stages. First, they will try to compromise you, give you the money if you want. If you fail, if you refuse, if you are able to resist, then you will be a target of destruction. It happened to me all. If you are not lucky, you will lose your life.
Corruption fights even harder. Be that as it may, what has come down to us now as a country, as a continent, in relation to the world, is a shame to our civilization. It's a shame to the very thing we get to hold down and we hold dear. It's a shame to our person. It's a shame to our time and our era, a time whereby we've made serious technological strides and serious technological advancement, and yet we have also seen to it that we have lived below the benchmark of rationality, of reasoning, of coming to terms with the daily reality that the choices we get to make here and now gets to leave us in pain. If not us directly, it gets to leave the next group of people in pain. It gets to leave them in sadness. It gets to leave them in want and in sorrow. And you get to see this in America's politics in relation to the geopolitics of other countries. Put America first. There's no problem with having a nationalistic idea, but when you have policies that get to prevent other countries from putting themselves first, I begin to ask myself, of what use is your involvement in geopolitics geopolitics is ordinarily in the first place, because you want the good of your people just like everybody wants the good of their people, but then you get to stifle the growth of other persons by foreign policies as so-called morality police, as opposed to granting them a fair play, granting them equality and equity to come to the table. Getting to wash your hands, and you do this and you feel no iota of shame, from going to Iran in the first place and chasing after Saddam Hussein, to going down to Libya and chasing Gaddafi and a whole lot of other things down that particular road, by using Japan as a testing ground for whatever experiments you want to do, and the many other exploits you get to do down in Indonesia, get to do down Congo, down in Rwanda, in Botswana, and you name it, not to even talk about Nigeria and all that, and the levels of sanctions being placed on such a continent as Africa. One cannot help but despair. And the more this thing gets to happen, the more people are told not to speak up, not to say anything, not to do anything. People are told to just be quiet and be calm and be okay, because nothing is working. And to speak up means to look for trouble in a place where nothing is working. For what can be the worst thing that ordinarily will happen? In a place where nothing is working, what should be the response? The response should be utterance. The response should be revolt. The response should be a revolution. The response should be all the things that ordinarily should put people on the right track as opposed to the wrong track. A thing we don't do. A thing we ought to do. And when people hear revolution, the first thing that comes to mind is the French Revolution, the Irish fight for their emancipation and that. But what about the real meaning of the word revolution? To turn around, to not fall into a revolt from the other extreme of the conversation. What about telling ourselves that, I think we've been going on a wrong train and a wrong track for a very long time, and Our sense of oneness is not being guaranteed, and if we continue like this, we're going to crash. Why not we take a U-turn? Why not we begin to look at the policies we've been implementing for years on ending now, and how they get to affect people and how they get to affect communities, how the politics we get to practice get to affect a place like Haiti, gets to affect a place like Somalia. And be you someone from Haiti or from Somalia, what about your own response to the problems in your countries? How do you try to navigate this stuff? How do you try to tell yourself from the depth of your heart, I am tired of this situation and I want to get out? And I understand it might not be that easy, because you get to see this play out clearly in the works of J.K. Rowling when she gave us Harry Potter, and then you get to see that rather than just having a book talking about trying to pass through block ways in railway stations and having to fly with some broomsticks and all that, you also see to it that some persons down in her country, around the time she was writing, due to the circumstance surrounding their bed and the circumstances surrounding their existence, they ordinarily would have no chance to break away from poverty, would have no chance from making it out of the streets and out of the place they ordinarily are at that particular moment. And it is true. Even in our current times, even in our current situation, because of the policies we've allowed to come to be and the policies we've enacted and the policies we've accepted, either by choice or by force or by ignorance or by no better way of coming to look at things, or by our levels of hypocrisy or our levels of getting to turn the other side, or our levels of our nonchalant attitude as it concerns real ethical stuff down here, ethical issues down here. You find people across the border, the other side of the table, the side we don't want to associate with ourselves, the side we don't want to tell ourselves, that particular side also can be me. We find people sitting around these chairs and these benches, as if they're even sitting, crying and wailing at the top of their voice and in silence due to the policies we've come to enact. Let's not even talk about war today. Let's not even talk about the many crises we ourselves have come to put ourselves. And just like Pope Pius would get to say during the war, he said post-war Europe, the map of post-war Europe will be more recognizable than the man from the post-war Europe. And that is what has happened. The war, as well as the many wars we've been fighting within ourselves, from hypocrisy to different levels of pretentiousness and different ways of getting to tell ourselves that we don't care. We have come to see how we have changed. We have changed, developing speed without our ability to sit down, calm down, and reason and think about how to go and how not to go. We have developed machine minds and machine hearts, and we are crumbling. And just like Alan Turing himself would get to ordinarily envisaged a computer to be someone who computes things, who computes numbers, and how we have come to understand computers today as devices different from what Alan Turing ordinarily will hold as the computers. So also we have been able to transform ourselves from the notion Alan Turing had as computers computing to the actual machines out of the realms in which he was talking about. And so we find ourselves as the computer given by this great scientist and logician to accepting the reality of computers as we now have it. And that's what we've now come to become. We now take decisions as though we are robots. We now do things that ordinarily don't make sense, that ordinarily we can't justify, that ordinarily we shouldn't be doing in the first place, all for reasons best known to us, all for our self-gratification. And and what have you. And so as we continue to navigate life down here, as we continue to live our lives, as we continue to try to have our being, as we continue to try to progress and try to make sense of our life down here, may we not forget why we are around, to better the world, to make and find meaning out of our life. And if we cannot find meaning out of our life, at least we shouldn't prevent the next person from doing so. If we want a world where we all would live and be happy, we ordinarily should stop lying to ourselves. We should start telling ourselves the truth. That girl you like, that girl you want to talk to, try and approach her. She doesn't bite. She's a human being. And you too, that girl, if he comes talking to you and you find him interesting, why not? How will you know if you don't try? How will you know if you don't give a chance? That boy in your class who wants to have a conversation about future prospects in terms of academic achievement and ways of living, why not? Why can't you? Why shouldn't you? Why mustn't you? You can do it. You shouldn't just fold your arms and fold your hands and tell yourself you don't care. You should do it if you must do it. And why mustn't you? Give people a chance. The boss in the office, don't scold your workers. Don't shout at them when ordinarily you can communicate issues and conversations to them in simple ways. Don't cajole them. Don't make them look stupid. Don't make them look foolish. And you, that publisher, you've seen that particular manuscript and you know that the girl knows how to write. The guy can get better in writing. You know all of this and you know self even that you're a failed writer or you don't even have anything in relation to how such a person can write. And yet you decide for one political reason or not, for whatsoever reason given by sensitivity readers, not to get such a person published, and thereby stifling a dream, stifling a goal, stifling somebody from ordinarily becoming what such a person would have been. Can you have a change of mind? Can you repent from your sins and give that publishing opportunity to such a young man who has the possibility of changing the world? Because nobody knows how far an author can go from the very first book they get to publish. Not Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, not Chinua Achebe. Nobody would have believed what these people have come to achieve within our lifetime and within our history, if not that somebody took a chance with them, if not that somebody accepted to get them published, if not that somebody said, I will give you a chance and I will give you an opportunity and let's see what happens. For how long are we going to be gatekeepers trying to stifle people and ask them what they write and what they read and what they shouldn't write and what they shouldn't read, and thereby we producing bad literature? For how long are we going to shut boys down and shut women down and body shame ourselves and tell ourselves we are not good enough? For how long are we going to continue to pretend to ourselves? For as long as we want to continue to pretend, we will be here pretending to ourselves. And I bet you we will not make any progress if we continue down that particular line. We will just spiral and nothing will come out of our lives. Nothing will come out of our existence down here if we don't accept the truth. And what is the truth? The truth being that you and I need one another. You and I must grow together, must grow in love, in peace, in unity. You and I must accept peace. You and I must accept love. And as we started from the perspective of our inability to get to speak up and speak out and speak clearly, even while our voice shakes. We must learn to give people agency. We must learn to also give ourselves agency. Because come on, how long do we have to live here? The psalmist says 70 is for those. 70 is our time allotted to us here. 80 for those who are strong. And after that we die. But then we shrink and we fall and we go back to our enclaves and we tell ourselves, What are they saying? What are they thinking? What shouldn't we say? What should we say? How should I walk? What should I wear? What shouldn't I wear? What should I eat? Where should I get an apartment? Where should I go to school? Like, what are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying? Even when nobody is watching, even when nobody is saying anything, even when nobody is doing anything to us, we tell ourselves these stories and we believe them. We hold them tight like farewell hugs. We begin to believe these lies about ourselves and about our times and about our world, and we begin to scrutinize the things we want to say. We begin to go over them over and over and over and over and over again. And most of the times we say nothing. And most of the times we also say things we don't mean and hide the things we ordinarily mean. We cannot tell somebody we are angry with them. We cannot tell somebody we love them. We cannot tell somebody we appreciate them. We cannot tell somebody we like the body of their work. We cannot write to authors we love. We cannot write to podcasters we get to listen to. We cannot write to content creators that make life meaningful for us. We cannot write to politicians or appreciate them in our various conversations and our various small talks. We cannot even tell our teachers and our professors that, you know what I am doing here, thanks to what you did there. We cannot tell our teachers this. We cannot even tell ourselves this because we are so much concerned as to what will they see, what will become the way I will be looked at. How will I be perceived? Will I be looked at from a stupid point of view? Will I be looked at as a foolish person? Will I be looked at as a person who doesn't have balls, a person who doesn't have the mind, a person who doesn't have courage? How will I be perceived by people? And what should I do and what shouldn't I do? And how should I go and how shouldn't I go? And you see this in our lives. You see this in the ways we move, the ways we become, the way we ordinarily also don't become. And we break and we shrink and we recoil to ourselves and we fall down. We tell ourselves all these things. We try to make sense of our existence down here. We try to grow, but then we also don't. We try to do all the things we ought not to do, as opposed to the things we ordinarily should do. And as we continue to live like this, we continue to tell ourselves things ordinarily that don't make sense. And we come to accept this day by day by day by day. And sometimes we don't even know that we live in these sad times. We live in this very terrifying period in our lives where we don't even know what to do and what not to do and how to go about our lives and how not to go about living, because it's so terrifying to be a human being in the 21st century. We cannot talk, we cannot speak, we aren't free. We have become robots and we've become so afraid of ourselves. We've lost a sense of argument. We've lost the sense of dialogue. We've lost the sense of having real-time communications with people. We recoil until we think it's better. I don't know where we're heading to. I don't know. I pray we don't get lost completely if we've not even been lost. I am Obin Emeka.